Update!
And it's been another week. I want to talk to you guys about some ridiculous things today. But before I get into talking about what is ridiculous, let me tell you something that's not ridiculous. Our friends Caitlin and Phil are married. You'll recognize Caitlin as Veronique from the platoon of Power Squadron, and you'll recognize Phil, if you watch the horror movie marathons that I do here, as the guy who's always in them. It was a wonderful ceremony and a wonderful reception. We're so happy for them. Now let's talk about what's ridiculous. 1, it has been the most difficult scheduling of all time to try and schedule a shooting of Pops 9. This is a pro tip right here. If you want scheduling to be easy, do not hire talented people, okay? Simple. If you want a bunch of talented people, they're going to be very busy, utilizing their talents to the best of their abilities on a variety of projects. It has been really, really tough this time though, guys. Lots of projects are happening right now for a lot of the people involved in our show. It's been really, really hard. I was listening to an interview with Clive Barker, who sounds really, really sickly these days. I think it's just because he's been a smoker for his whole life. He says, creative people are often going to be put in a situation where the world is asking them, how much do you want to do this? How badly do you want this to exist? Because it's hard. Anyway, scheduling again. Gotta get on the phone with a couple people and see if things will work out. Because every time I move the scheduling situations, I learn of a different person that has a problem with one of those dates, and it just keeps on cycling like that. And I'm going to talk about another crazy thing in internet video these days. And that is the 2:3:5 aspect ratio, you guys. Boom! 2:3:5. It's everywhere, and that means that it's a project of quality. All right, like if you got a couple black bars, that means you took the time to frame and mask like you were shooting for scope, you know, for like a widescreen presentation on the big screen. Here, the top link in the dubs this week is to a video by a channel called Filmmaker IQ. They have a website. It's all about film-centric stuff, and this is the history of the aspect ratio, you guys, and it is fascinating. Aspect ratio is what format you're going to shoot your film in. Because let's take this back. Let's take this back. Film is basically a square. Like if you look at like a strip of film, it's broken into squares, and that's what you're shooting on. That's a frame. Each of those squares is a frame. They're not perfect squares, they're 4x3, which means 4x3. Looked like what a television used to look like. Boom. Before television was invented, this is how movies were presented. When television came around and everything looked like that, movies were like, well, what can we do that's different? So they started making screens bigger. So you had a bigger screen, and that's where the 2:3:5 aspect ratio came in, guys. And no one was masking anything off. They invented a lens, okay, that compressed the image while you were shooting it. That you had to have a different lens on the projector to project out to this wide thing. It's very simple, the reason that this happens. Like, look, here's somebody's face in the 4:3 ratio. Then you go to 16:9. Boom. You get a little bit more space. It feels like there's a little bit more room. But you get that same close-up in 2:3:5. Boom. It just looks like there's so much more. You define scope in negative space. The more space around your object, there's more going on in your frame because it's not just the person's face. Like if you're just going to shoot a whole person in a square, there's not much going on. All you can see is that person. 16:9, you get a little more feel for the environment. But if you do a whole person in scope in 2:3:5, it's so... Look at how beautiful. And it's just because you can see more of the environment. This is the thing that's crazy to me. Using it in internet video is actually the opposite of what it was intended to do. To make things bigger, now we're not shooting with anamorphic lenses. All we're doing is cropping off the top and the bottom of the screen. And it looks more cinematic to our eye. Even though I'm utilizing less of the frame, the internet frame, which is small to begin with. The reality of it is using an anamorphic frame for a video meant for the internet is making a smaller image. Whereas the anamorphic frame, the 2:3:5, the scope frame, was invented for a larger image. In fact, the first time they ever used it, you'll see it in that video, they had to shoot it with 3 cameras to get the frame that they wanted to. Now all we're doing is cropping off the top and the bottom. The situational irony of it is that it's actually the exact opposite of what it was intended to be. It's actually making the screen smaller now. And I'm seeing the 2:3:5 aspect ratio everywhere because people think it looks more cinematic, and it does. Even though we're seeing less on our screen, it still looks more cinematic. But to my mind, it makes 0 sense to crop off the top and bottom of your frame for an internet video. But music videos, 235 everywhere. Not 16:9. That's an actual full frame now. It's crazy. Yeah. So today is the update of ridiculous things. How hard it is to schedule and how little sense it makes to shoot an internet video for 235. That's the whole deal, you guys. Thank you so much. We're starting to shoot this week. Like, if you're watching this on Sunday, our first shoot day is Monday. It's tomorrow. I've got it all shot listed already. And then we're going to be shut down for a whole week because of scheduling. We get one shoot day this week. And then next week, I think we got like 5 shoot days or something like that. I will talk to you guys next week. What do you think? Do you think the 2:3:5 aspect ratio looks more cinematic even though we're looking at a tiny little monitor, computer monitor? Because it does to me. And I'm like, brain, what is the matter with you? That is a smaller image. There's not more scope, there's less. It's all about framing something for how you want it to appear, right? And so if somebody has 2:3:5 and that's how their thing is being shot, and then you just uncrop it, it looks wrong. It's framed wrong. It's about shooting for the output. And people are shooting for their 2:3:5 output. It just is crazy that that looks more cinematic even though we're seeing less image on a computer screen. Thank you, you guys. Watch that history of the aspect ratio because it's fascinating. I hope you guys have a good week, and I will see you then.